Two children vanish without a trace. A quiet Nova Scotia morning turns into a nightmare that still grips an entire country. And at the center of it all, one name keeps coming up: Daniel Martell. But what exactly connects him to the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan? What have investigators uncovered? And what are they still not saying? Tonight, we break down every clue, every contradiction, and every unanswered question that has kept this case alive for months. It was just after sunrise on May 2nd, 2025, the kind of quiet spring morning when everything feels calm and predictable, until it wasn't. That morning, the Sullivan family's peaceful routine shattered in an instant. 4-year-old Lily and her little brother, 3-year-old Jack, vanished from their home in rural Pictou County without a trace. The house itself told a story that made no sense. No broken windows, no forced doors, no signs of a struggle. Everything appeared untouched, yet something was terribly wrong. Their toys sat where they'd left them the night before. Their beds were rumpled, as if they had just climbed out moments earlier. The front door, usually locked, stood open, and beyond it, only silence. When their mother discovered the children missing, panic turned to disbelief. Within hours, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police were called in, and what began as a local search for two missing toddlers quickly evolved into one of the most puzzling disappearances Nova Scotia had ever seen. Investigators immediately sensed that this case wouldn't follow the usual script. Details were conflicting. Timelines shifted. Statements from those closest to the family didn't always align. Every new piece of information seemed to raise more questions than answers. As officers combed the surrounding woods and canvassed neighbors, one name began to circulate among investigators and the community alike: Daniel Martell, the children's stepfather. His account of that morning was detailed, yet parts of it didn't sit right. He claimed to have left for work earlier than usual, but phone records and witness accounts painted a different picture. Why were his statements inconsistent? Why did his version of events seem to shift every time police pressed for clarity? From that point forward, Martell's involvement became the focus of growing scrutiny and suspicion. According to reports, Daniel Martell told investigators that he believed Lilly and Jack might have slipped out quietly through the back sliding door while everyone was still asleep. It was a simple explanation, maybe too simple. He said he thought they'd wandered off into the woods behind the property, something that had happened before, though never this early and never without anyone noticing. But as investigators examined his statement, one detail stood out. Martell mentioned a wrench. He said he had used it on the front door lock the night before and left it there. To RCMP officers, that detail didn't fit naturally into the story. Why mention the wrench at all? Was it an innocent memory, or something more calculated, designed to redirect attention away from the back door he claimed the children had used? The question lingered. How could two toddlers, barely old enough to reach the door handle, manage to slip out of the house unnoticed? The home wasn't large. Any movement, any door opening, should have made a sound. There were no footprints immediately outside, no signs of little feet pressing through the damp morning grass. Something about the scene felt too clean, too controlled. That's when RCMP began to look closer, much closer. They treated the Sullivan home not as a simple missing person site, but as a potential crime scene. Officers carefully collected small, seemingly ordinary objects: the children's toothbrushes from the bathroom sink, a single sock left near the hallway, and torn pieces of a pink blanket. What startled investigators was that fragments of that same blanket were later found in two very different places, one near the edge of the woods behind the home, and another inside a trash bag at the end of the driveway. Each item told part of a larger story, like puzzle pieces scattered and incomplete, but together they painted a haunting picture. Two children vanished, traces of them left behind in odd, inconsistent places, and still not a single clue revealing where they'd gone. Days later, when hope was beginning to fade, a witness came forward with a claim that reignited the entire investigation. They said they'd seen two small children, matching Lily and Jack's description, walking near the roadside that morning, not far from the Sullivan home. What caught the witness's attention wasn't just the children's presence, but what came next: a tan or gold sedan idling a few meters away. According to the account, the car door opened, and the children seemed to move toward it before disappearing from sight. It was a chilling image, one that immediately shifted the tone of the entire case. Almost overnight, the quiet rural community of Pictou County was shaken. The possibility that this was an accident, that someone may have taken Lilly and Jack, sent waves of panic and outrage through the town. Posters went up across neighborhoods, local volunteers expanded the search radius, and social media exploded with theories. Was this a kidnapping? If so, who would target two small children from a remote home? And why? The questions multiplied faster than answers could keep up. The RCMP acted quickly, treating the witness statement as a major lead. They pulled surveillance footage from nearby gas stations and traffic cameras, tracked down every registered tan or gold sedan in the area, and conducted interviews with vehicle owners. But after days of searching through grainy video clips and inconsistent timelines, they found nothing that definitively connected any car or driver to the children's disappearance. The promising lead dissolved into another dead end. Meanwhile, the online world took the case into its own hands. True crime forums, local Facebook groups, and Reddit threads began dissecting every word of Daniel Martell's interviews. His body language, his timeline, even the pauses in his speech became fuel for speculation. Was he hiding something? Why had his story shifted slightly in each retelling? Before long, public suspicion drowned out the few confirmed facts, and the investigation found itself caught between rumor and reality, with two missing children still unaccounted for. Behind closed doors, the RCMP's investigation began to shift from a frantic search to a slow, methodical inquiry. Detectives were no longer just looking for missing children. They were piecing together a puzzle that seemed to defy logic. Daniel Martell, along with other close family members, was called in for multiple rounds of interviews. Each session dug deeper, comparing timelines, testing recollections, and revisiting small details that didn't add up. Martel agreed to a polygraph test, as did others in the household, but investigators have never disclosed the results publicly. What is known, however, is that the sessions left police with more questions than answers. Inside the forensic labs, every item taken from the Sullivan home was being analyzed. Fibers from the pink blanket, soil samples from the driveway, even microscopic traces on the children's toothbrushes. All were examined for DNA and environmental residue that might point to what happened that morning. Technicians worked under the assumption that even the smallest inconsistency could hold the key. Yet, for all the testing and all the data collected, nothing definitively linked anyone to foul play. There were traces of the children, yes, but not a single sign of where they went or who might have taken them. Then, court documents began to surface. They revealed just how extensive the RCMP's evidence list had become. Photographs, phone logs, vehicle data, soil samples, and nearly 100 witness statements. But buried in the paperwork was a statement that stunned many following the case. As of July 2025, the RCMP officially noted that the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan was not considered criminal in nature at this time. It was a cautious declaration, one that didn't close any doors, but also didn't confirm the worst fears of the community. Still, public suspicion remained laser-focused on Daniel Martell. His inconsistent recollections of the morning's events, small discrepancies about time, sounds, and actions refused to fade. And with every unanswered question, every unexplained trace found around the property, his name continued to dominate headlines and online debates. Even as police stayed measured in their language, the community had already made up its mind. Something about Martel just didn't feel right. Nearly half a year later, the quiet roads of Pictou County still carry the weight of unanswered questions. The search for Lilly and Jack Sullivan hasn't ended. Not officially, not emotionally, not for a single day. What began as a frantic rescue mission has transformed into a lingering mystery, one that continues to haunt both investigators and the families left behind. Every week, volunteers still gather to comb through dense stretches of forest and check abandoned sheds and trails. Flyers bearing the children's faces have faded under weather, yet they remain taped to power poles and community boards, silent reminders of two young lives still missing. The questions have only grown more pressing with time. How could two small children vanish in broad daylight from a familiar home without a single verified sighting since that morning? How do investigators explain the strange distribution of the children's belongings? Fragments of Lily's pink blanket near the woods, her sock in the trash, and faint traces that seem to lead nowhere. Each clue feels like a whispered truth that refuses to form a full sentence. Whether the truth lies in the woods, the data, or within conflicting stories, one thing is clear. Someone knows what happened. Until that person speaks, this mystery remains one of Canada's most haunting unsolved cases. I'm True Crime Radar. Stay curious and stay tuned.